Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wavemakers Podcast. My guest today is Nils Roche. You say for yourself that you like to connect people through container shipping, but I would like you to share more and introduce yourself in your extended words. And who is Nils Roche and how is he changing the industry nowadays?
Very pleased to be here. Thanks for the invite. I think this connecting people through container shipping is a French way to express that the industry we're in, and I work since a few years now, is really an industry of people. I'll come back to it, I guess, but we are not pharma where we save life. We are not tech where we change the way people interact, etc. So shipping is it's a different animal. It's a very human animal, I would say.
And when I was thinking of telling the story of people in this industry, right? I think your story is just incredible. It's almost like, in movies, you see the story of the American dream in a sense.
Uh-huh.
And I think your story is an equivalent of that within the maritime industry. So how did it all start?
I guess in a more regional way, I can do a parallel with the American dream. I used to say I'm a small boy. I'm a boy from a small town in a big arcade. So I come from Marseille, south of France. My dad used to fix computers in the underground for a guy in a shop. My mom was a social worker, so not the most fancy and greatest life that we had, but it's a good life. I had the chance, at least, that we had a sailing boat. At first, the first sailing boat we got, named Ulysses, was not able to sail. It was not seaworthy, so it was just to have a boat in a port near Marseille, and we would go and spend the weekends and the holidays there. So I guess in a way, sometimes I used to say, I'm almost born on a ship because I started 4 or 5 year old. My grandfather used to say he was a bosun. A bosun is a master of the crew, selected by the crew. So he's not an officer, he's a mastery. But apart from that, I had no idea for many, many years that I would end up in shipping. In France, when you are about 17, so just before graduation, you're being asked to what you want to do with your life. I had no idea. I had sincerely no idea. So I think my parents always wanted me to be a form of a scientist. So at some point I was considering weather scientist, weather engineer and something. I even went to interviews for school and got in. But a few weeks before graduation, my grandfather, that I had seen maybe 5 times in my life, come and bring me onto a ferry ship, so a Rocher, from Marseille to Corsica, and introduce me to everything, because he used to sail with the company. He was bosun. So, we go to the engine room, to the deck. We even visit the pilot station in Ajaccio, in Corsica. So I really meet all the stakeholders in this world for the first time. And maybe because of the family effect, where for the first time I spent time with my grandfather, etc., it was really a positive experience. And my grandfather said, you should become an officer. It's a good life, it's a good pay. You have every day is different. You're going to do useful things and see the world more or less. So quite a speech. And actually that's how it started. So I went to maritime school. So I am a third mate, so a lieutenant in French. I sailed a couple of years, and then unfortunately, or fortunately, I would say fortunately today, unfortunately at the time, my contract ends, and I happened to spend 1 month unemployed, as many of my colleagues at the time, because French seafarers, are expensive on the market. To be very honest, I think we are as good as any European nation. Ukrainians, Latvia, etc., etc. So it's hard to compete for French on this market, depending on the season. And one evening, I'm having a mate pinging me on, I don't think it was MSN, but texting me and then, saying, "Hey, you want to have a drink tonight? This other guy is coming." And I hasn't seen this other guy for 6 months, 8 months. I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And talking with this other guy, I'm just like, "Oh, so where have you been? What have you been doing?" And he actually told me having a ship planner for CMA-CGM in Marseille. And the deal is I do that for a year with them, and then they sell me as third mate on the ships. That's the deal. Do you want the number? Of course. So I took the number and I called, voicemail, got called back, and then in a day I do 3 interviews with them, so all the management. I met at this point Nicolas Romero, who has been my mentor and my friend today, still a mentor. And he showed me a schedule of a ship and tell me, "Do you know what that means?" And it was written USMIA with days below. And I'm like, "I'm so sorry, I don't know." It's very important for me to say that, don't know what I don't know. And it's like, "That's Miami." Then he showed me the next one, USNYC. I was like, I think I know this one. And it's really started like that. So I started my Seafarer life to become what we call a liner, so working in a line, a maritime line, and starting in operations, doing ship management, evolving into operation management, so coordinating a team of storage managers and handling services from operational point of view. And then, again, I'm a boy from a small town, but that used to have dream of sailing the world. So a bit later in my life, I got, I would say, not homesick, but in a sense of a lot of ghosts, a lot of memories in my hometown. So I needed a fresh start. But though, despite where at work I was very mature and having 30 people as a team, etc., etc., on a personal life, I think I was still lacking form of maturity, of knowing where I want to go and live in the world. So it was a real moment for me. But again, luckily, I've been very lucky in my life. Somebody heard from me in Maersk in Copenhagen, Denmark, and basically there is a black and white offer for a job, which is network design in intra-Europe brand of Maersk, Sealand. And I saw that as a sign, as something answering my need. I leave to each individual their beliefs, but for me it was a form of, I used to say it's entropy. So it's physics, things happen in reaction of something, etc., etc. So I take the leap of faith and I spend 4 years in Denmark, 2 years as network design, and then 2 years as a trade manager for Asia Europe, which counts as the largest trade for Maersk, being itself the now second largest container company in the world. And been very lucky there because I've been exposed to trade management, which is a very different discipline within shipping. And through that and network design, I've been given the opportunity to work on the decarbonization of the ocean network of Maersk. And I'm this kind of guy that when I believe in something, people used to say I can move mountains because I really put the passion and the energy, which is also a downside because if I don't believe in something, obviously I might not be the most productive and more, but it's okay. So decarb resonated in me for a few things, but I would say that one of the best learning I had from it was change management, obviously, but also understanding how it's all a matter of people and themselves believing in. Again, I've been very lucky. I met my wife in Denmark, and both of us felt that we needed, again, a new start, wanted to have another adventure. And same thing, somebody at the other side of the world heard from me and called me a morning and offered me to lead the operations for PIL in Singapore. My wife, having worked in Asia before and being passionate about it, and myself speaking a few words of Chinese, we saw that again as a sign that entropy was working, Newton law again, and we took the adventure. And now, in a different form and in different capacity, I drive change. Decarbonization is one of them. Value for the customers, reliability. So, form of ethical shipping, if you will, that I would like to drive.
You say you were lucky, but I do think that luck meets the competence and the bravery to take these shifts and take these calls, right? And you've been on journey of experience in the industry from so many angles that I think now that you work with people, you really can identify with their journey through it as well, right? Like you've gone through it. And I think that is what kind of forms this full circle of capabilities needed to move things to the next level and shape things forward. And I can also relate to the feeling of like, I think it's a sign. I've had these moments also in life and things somehow like creates what looks at that moment chaos, but it's a perfect alignment towards the next big thing, right?
Even in chaos, there is order. So sometimes we have to follow the habit, I guess.
And with that, what do you think was your superpower navigating through the journey?
Obviously, I look more like Lex Luthor than Clark Kent, so I'm not sure I have a superpower. I think something that my teams, my close friends, tells me is that it's obvious that I care. So again, it comes at a cost because caring means that you will go through ups and downs, and there will be a fight to take for the people, etc. So I think the fact that I see myself as a deeply human, connected in that way, is a strength, and it's likely the superpower I could have. That combined maybe to when I want, not right now speaking, but obviously when I want, I tend to approach things in a very structured way. So I prepare for things, not to the last bit of details, but it's it's something I've been trained to. So when I was in CMA, CGM, in operations, we were exposed to a very charismatic management that's expected from you that you know everything and beyond, which is a very good philosophy when you want to learn, like I was when I was young and still today. And therefore, I needed to be prepared for any question, even not related to my scope. So I think this sticked with me, and I use that as a superpower where I go and do something, even for the smallest, some people say the smallest things, I will be prepared because I care.
It's almost like maybe you don't know the outcome, but it's like a toolbox, right? You go way beyond what's necessary to ensure you have the right toolbox for that unpredictable situation.
Correct. That's how I see things. I also try to start with the answer. So I tell my guys and my girls, start with the conclusion, and then, put maybe the main parameters or the main assumptions, and then give all the details of what your brain has been around, right? So, and I used to say also, full of says, prepare the plan B and plan C before presenting plan A, because everybody is expecting the plan A as per se. But are you sure you cannot think about the B and C, the alternatives? So I go like that at the topics.
And now witnessing the industry over a number of years, do you think it has changed? Is it accelerating more than before?
Yeah. So now about 10 years in shipping, container shipping. I think I have two answers to that. I'm going to start with the one that's been more gray and gloomy, in a sense that container shipping by nature, is a very costly affair. A ship today is worth 150 million, give or take, right? Sometimes more. Yes, it is used over, give or take, 25 years, but it's still an enormous amount of money for an individual or corporation to deploy, knowing that if you want to link Asia to Europe, for example, you're going to need 12 ships. So $1.5 billion, 1.4 billion. The revenue that you will generate from this activity are, of course, very variable. We have seen that with COVID, but I urge people to remember that COVID and the years after were really an exception, though shipping historically has been making 0 to 1% margin, container shipping. So the fact combined that is a lot of capex, there is OPEX, and there is very little revenue, depending on the year, of course, and the trade, the market situation, makes that we are very attentive to cost, but also to the volume element. So we need containers, we need customers to trust us, and we need to deliver for them. But the margins are thin. Therefore, is a lot of the resistance to have the industry changing, because carriers, container lines, cannot change just because the world is asking so. We need to be supported by our customers, and we need to be supported by our vendors, right? The terminals, for example. So it's an ecosystem. But with the margins we have, we cannot afford to have a leap of faith without regulatory framework, without customers willing to pay for decarbonization, for example, or for automation, or for whatever the industry is needing. So I'll say that there is a form of inertia, right? Not one that we want as an industry, but one that is a reality. Mm-hmm. So again, I encourage people when sometimes you see some clickbait articles, people put themselves on the side of the customer and say, oh, look at those bad carriers. There's more to it, of course. The positive aspect, I would say, or the way I see the industry for sure changing is 8 years ago, it was really 100% of people would say, why should I decarbonize? Why should I look at investing? Why should I look at... It's not the case anymore. We have really, I think in my circles, etc., it's more 80% of how can I do it, right? And 20% that still wonder maybe if they should do it, but it's more 80% that looks actively on what is or what are the solutions to make it. And that is beautiful because, again, I used to say we do a very, very old job, carrying goods, right? Transport in general is a very, very old job, way beyond the Greeks. So there's a lot of history, there's a lot of experience, there's a lot of déjà vu of situations where when we were in the early 2010s, talking about low sulfur, right, and the change it needed to drive, and we needed regulatory, etc. So I think there are cycles, mm-hmm. But more and more, the industry of the maritime industry, not only container, want to drive this change, wants to do better. Which again, 10 years ago, I didn't have the same feeling.
Yeah, and I do think that people are solution-oriented in general, right? So as you say, now the topic is how to decarbonize. And previously it was some other how-to, but that attitude is similar. And do you think that people within Maritime are different or special? This is something that I got a lot of when I joined Maersk. They were like, people in this industry are different. So how are they different if they're different?
I think we are different. I have the pleasure going in Denmark and Singapore to be exposed to different industries. So I realize today that indeed we are a specific breed of industry, of workers, if you will. I think shipping people, in general, are, as you said, very solution-minded. So what I tell my teams, for example, when they go at a situation, and sometimes you react emotionally, etc., I say, every problem has a solution. Look in the dictionary, there's a definition of a problem. If a problem doesn't have a solution, it's not a problem. It's an act of God or something, right? So I think, it resonates with what we do in container shipping in general, of course, very much in operations on the day-to-day. We are problem solver. We're not a very shining industry. Again, we're quite gray. a lot of time we are depreciated in the media because of clickbait again. But I think we should draw pride of what we are doing. Again, it may be down to earth, it may be 101, it may be basic. Yes, we have ships taking boxes from A to B, sure. But beyond that, what it enables is the trading of people to people, right? If you take a look for a second, I know I'm diverging a bit, but IMO 23, that needed to have a correction factor on the CRI to limit how the scoring of the emissions of the live reefers, reefer containers being carried around the world, they need a correction factor, because if this correction factor was not there, we should divide by 2.5 the amount of reefers we could carry. Just a reminder that in reefers we carry medicine, we carry food, we carry a lot of very important things for the world. So problem solver, yes. I think it's an industry of passionate people. It's rare that you will meet one of us that doesn't have ideas, a view, like to talk about it, right? I'm very lucky to have a wife that has big eyes and wants to know everything when I talk about the ship. But actually, most of us are like that. So we don't go to work in a clerical way or doing a job without impact. I think most of us do it with the intent of doing good and with a purpose behind. Maybe on the more, it's not negative really, but sometimes maybe we are rough people. By that I mean we solve a lot of problems every day. Margins are thin. It's when you think about it, container shipping is having units that are 200,000 tons carrying containers through 3 seas, 4 oceans, departing on one day, arriving on day 50, crossing different weathers, different political unrest, right? We consider Red Sea, the Arabian Gulf, but many, many more. And still we make it more or less in time. But all of that is actually being handheld by people. So I think sometimes by lack of time, because there's a lot to do, and we don't have the margins to pay for an excess of staff or an excess in technology, we end up to go directly to the point. So maybe more than rough, I would say we are very straightforward, with a tendency of forgetting that the shape of the message is as important as the content. Shipping is a very good industry to notice that data doesn't win, but storytelling does. We're still in an industry where the one that speaks the better or the most or the loudest sometimes will have the decision-making power most of the time. I think we change, we evolve. Now data is more and more with us, but it's a journey, and we are at the very, very early stage of it.
It's actually very interesting because storytelling resonates with people, right? That is like one of the earliest social forms for us, right? And again, that tells so much about how much this industry is about the people. And when you were mentioning the process of driving the business, let's say, it does sound like a 0 to 1 startup all the time, right? You're trying to be as lean as possible, as efficient as possible. And there are so many stakeholders, complexities that you try to navigate, no matter whether you're a corporate or not, but because of this low margin nature, you're just forced to think in that sense, what is the most efficient way from A to B that would cost the least, and just tight and minimize the space for errors, because you can't backtrack and fix it so easily, right?
Yeah, and beyond the economical, the financial implications, there's a customer behind. I don't want to sound too idealistic, but my point is the customers, they don't call Maersk, well, they can't, there's no phone number. But okay, there's no, they call CMA or they call PIL or they call Costco. They call somebody they know in the company, a name, and they call somebody that has make things happen for them. So it's very intrinsic, it's very inherent to our industry, that it's people to people.
What did industry teach you about yourself?
I will take a personal journey of mine that I now bring in my discussions with the different teams I have. It's about branding.
That's a surprise to me.
Let's see. So when I was younger and all my life before that, people have tend to think that I am arrogant. And I've never give credit to that because I know that I'm not. I am confident. So when I say that I am good at tennis, I mean that I'm good at tennis. I have a certain level of technique. I can play 2-3 hours, etc., etc. I never meant to imply in any way that I'm better than you. I'm just, good. But this haunted me very, very, very often in my life. And in shipping, again, it's a people industry. It's storytelling. It's how you present yourself. It's how people mostly perceive you. And one of the big lessons of shipping has been that the image I send is not the image, might not be the image I would like to send. The image that people receive of me is not the one I think I'm sending. So somebody may see me as arrogant, and that's not what I want. I needed to work on that because, of course, it cost me opportunity for sure, but also it's a personal journey. But in shipping, it's sometimes very difficult to differentiate personal from work because, again, 24/7, the ships are moving, and we are passionate about what we do. So it's part of us. So now I really work branding with my team, explaining what I just explained, and saying that both at personal level, I want to ensure that the image they send and the people receive is the one they want to send. But also as a function, so I'm now back to operations where I started. And again, operations, we are kind of an archetype of shipping where we are seen as the rough former seafarers with a beard. And that say no, the ones that say no, we cannot add this port or wait for this customer. That's not what we are. Again, we are problem solvers. We are experts of what we do. And sometimes, instead of saying yes, but, we say no, because we have made subconsciously the list of risks and opportunity. And instead of sharing it with the stakeholders, we already render a judgment. Because again, no time, little money, so we need to solve 20 problems a day. But that I want to change. That I say to the teams, you should always say yes, but, and share what you know, the list, with your stakeholders, and make a joint decision. You don't need to stand alone in the decision and to appear conflictual. At the end of the day, you say the same thing. Because if you have demonstrated in your yes but list that there are really high risks and high impacts, then of course the people will rally to you. So branding important to me.
Yes, and with that, having the context of why no, then maybe they would be able to focus on what they need to prove right, or their risk right. And now that you were talking about, again, personal branding and how you see yourself, if you were a vessel, which vessel would you be and why?
I would be a nuclear MPSV. MPSV stands for multi-purpose service vessel. Those are small vessels, so 40 to 60 meters, and they are very versatile. It's in the name, multi-purpose. So they can serve as tug to save ships that are in distress in high sea, for example. They do missions for anti-pollution, right? So they can deploy a very large and effective means of containment. So, and beyond that, they also can do a lot of firefighting. So they are small ships that have a high power of thrusting, and they're very useful. So I think that's what I would like to be, useful, having an impact to my local area, I would say. I don't need to be the biggest one. I don't need to be the brightest one. I'm not. So small, useful, versatile. I think what I would like to be if I was a ship.
Adaptive and
Yep.
to be able to run for a long time.
Yes, that's also, of course, the nuclear part of it. I don't pretend that I know the key to decarbonization. I think it's a worldwide problem, obviously, and we need governments to align themselves. We need a world that is unified for this. If not, we'll just all fail, because that's a planet issue. I'm not saying that nuclear is the key, but it's one of the sources that can at least enable maybe a transition to something. So that's why I thought to add this nuclear in the MPSV. And if people are curious about MPSV, they should Google les abeilles, so the bees in French, les abeilles Bourbon, that do a fantastic job saving life at sea for the French coasts.
We will make sure to do that. And when you now lead the teams, what is your advice to young people joining the team? Or how should they navigate through this industry? What are some good to knows?
I used to say I have but only one rule that actually comes from my grandfather when he brought me on the ship. It's be fair. That you're happy or sad, that you have difficulties at home or you just got married, that you are right in your argument or you're wrong, you should always be fair to the stakeholders in front of you. You never know what's up in their life. You never know what they go through. And to be right doesn't give you the right to rule on the situation. So especially in my case, with my history of being perceived as sometimes arrogant, I'm very mindful of that I am happy or not, that I'm right or not, I should not use that. I have to be consistent, and I have to be respectful and fair. I think that is something I say to every new joiner in the industry, because it really was impactful for me and resonates. And I think there is a second one maybe is because I see the new generations coming now, very smart, very fast. They master all the chat GPTs, etc., etc. You cannot run alone. So in the context of the sea, I would say you cannot swim alone in the front. You need to take the people with you. So it's not enough to be good and to be leading the change in decarbonization or whatever activity you're doing. You need the people with you. So don't isolate yourself by being a front runner.
That's quite interesting. And in terms of, let's say, different experiences that one can take, which one do you think maybe is the most useful to them? Like if they're coming into this industry with the trends that are evolving, like where would you advise them to spend some time?
I think it's a discussion I had recently actually with students from universities and school here. You need to understand the business. So if you want to change the world tomorrow, there is room for that, and we need the young people to do that with us. You need to understand the reality of the business. So before you go and being a bright consultant for firms or even within your companies, it's very important that you put your hands in the fuel, literally, right? Go and sound the tank, go and on a ship and experience what it is for the crew to cross an ocean. So I think it's really important in our industry, maybe more than in others, that you know what you're talking about. Also because storytelling, again, you're not going to convince CEO that are themselves former trade managers or former operation manager if you haven't the hard substance to exchange on.
That conviction actually comes from the experience, right? And really knowing what is going on.
So we need people that are optimistic enough to continue to innovate, think, and challenge us, but they also need to have a form of base reality to be supported with.
And what are, let's say, some places you draw inspiration from? Like when you need to detach, think, maybe reevaluate some of these things? How does that work?
It's a difficult question for me because I rarely detach in a way. Again, shipping, container shipping, we quite involve every day in what we do. I try to draw parallels from the airline industry actually. The hub and spoke concept where you have big planes coming into a terminal and then small plane going into the smaller out location, airport, is of course something that in shipping we know now we have inspired ourselves from. But recently you saw some carriers launching a fidelity program, which is the most basic thing in the world in a way, right? In Asia, I have a fidelity program for my utility bills, but we didn't have that in shipping. So I think we have learned a lot from other industries, and the airline industry is a cousin of us, right? Planes also are expensive; they need to be utilized. It appears they make a bit more money than that we do, but then we should learn from it also. Something I like about a concept, an idea that I talked recently with my CCO was to say maybe we should have pushing it. We should have an interface when customers or booking agent they can come and online book a slot on the ship. Like we don't need to finally do a storage planning. They can already pre-book a slot. Of course, pending some parameters on the weight of the containers they want to put and origin destination. But why not pre-allocate slots like they do for an airline category A, B, C, and have the customers come, commit, but already choosing their place on board, like you and I we do when we book a ship. We even pay an add-on now to select our seats. Why don't we have this trust with the customers where we already commit to the box on the ship where it's going to be, and we retro-engineer things from there. While today we accept bookings, and we will do best endeavor to execute them as promised. But of course, a million things happen. Maybe we can have a more streamlined way, thinking about how airline is working and how I, as a customer, book on an airline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems that a lot of innovation in this short-term reality is going to be that adjacent innovation where you look at the business models and ideas working in other industries and implementing it in this one. That's something that I've previously seen a lot in the previous role, and now talking to the industry from a different angle. And what makes it still fun for you?
Oh, for Niels, at this day and age, at this point of my life, it's really about the people. So again, citing a mentor of mine that said when he reached a vice president position, upward is only beatings and expectations and pressure. Where I thrive is making you guys grow and develop. And I'm a bit at the same point in my life. Difference is that I'm in a very good environment right now, so at work, so it's okay. But I really thrive in taking care of my people. What makes it still fun, though, of course, people management has its ups and downs. Shipping is not an industry that you can automate and streamline and expect things to go in a SAP called logic system. So it has, it has its components, and the file is so versatile, and there's so many problems every day to solve. It's something that really excites me. Since I'm a kid, I like to solve problems, right? So that's my kick.
Yes, and I think this industry really, once you get into it, it becomes this endless Lego game, like so many things and so many ways to put things together, build and improve and connect, and it's a playground on its own. And with that, maybe as we are like easing into the full chapter of it, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I was wondering, now that you have, in the past few years, of course, meet very different actors in this industry, right? From ship owners to I'm not sure the word is correct, but startuppers, evangelists, etc. What is your biggest realization? What is something that really now is, as a learning or surprise, what marked your mind when you talk to so different actors and how they perceive the shipping industry, maybe not in general because it's a vast topic, but is decarbonization in shipping?
From the outsider's view, I don't think people understand how dynamic it is internally. And when you talk to people internally, again, in different roles, different backgrounds, fresh, not so fresh in it, I think that dynamics and ever-changing environment is what keeps them active. And this is also what you have shared. And this passion for problem solving. It looks like this passion for problem solving is what is keeping everyone in. And then depending of the background they come from, those that have been around for a while and understand the risk of it, they seem to be kind of like steering things and making sure that everything goes as it used to be, as planned, but not from the intention of keeping things from changing, but actually ensuring and risk management from that perspective. And then some of us that are fresh to it, that are passionate about driving and improving ways, we tend to try to like shake the ships also from the good intention. And I think it's that fine balance that is now, I think, changing things faster, speeded up by regulations, right? So we have this constant shift, and almost like when you shake the jar, like you feel things and you shake it and it kind of like settles and creates space for more, and then there's another. So I think that is what is happening now in a good way, but there's definitely like a bit of chaos, and then like it comes into place. But what I've learned the most driving things internally in Maersk and now externally, that the essence is the people, and bringing them to that ground when they understand that we're so similar and our values and what we want is actually quite similar. And then creating space for open discussions and open collaborations when we remove the shields from that role that we're doing at that moment. And that has been the, I think, secret to some of the innovation that I've witnessed. But I'm still learning, and I'm trying to broaden my views on what is it like from different, again, experiences. Because I think, being shaped into it. I didn't
All of us.
grew from the start into it. Yeah.
It's interesting. You mentioned the fact that the more experienced people they steer things, and from a risk management perspective, to drive change management, I sometimes ask my stakeholders, what does sustainability means to you? And of course, you get 1,000 answers. Of course, maybe 70% of it will say CO2 decarbonization or GHG, right? I personally answer that also as making money. If we are not profitable as an industry, right, each players, we won't be there in 10 years, 20 years, 100 years to change things. So sustainability for me, it goes also into that. It needs to be economical sustainability also. And as you mentioned, that's also why we need the regulatory bodies to help us, making it a norm, making it something that is transparent, something that funds R&D and funds subventions, etc., for the green fuels. But we need to be there to fight.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is quite prominent in the startup world, right? The decision, okay, like founders should innovate, but oftentimes they're financially pressed. And out of that space, then maybe it's challenging to make the right decisions, right? So I think, again, we are humans in different roles. So even in a corporate setting, in a large organization, again, people cannot be their best selves and ideate if they're worried whether they will have a job tomorrow, right? Or in X amount of months, years. So I do think that that's financial lens to making the transition can be also observed from this perspective. We need also money for some of the investments. We also need to feel that the company will thrive to be around, right?
And for now, I think it is a lot to see and to prove on that, right? Some companies that have been front runner that we know about, right? They have placed customer first. They have invested massively into some green fuels and some new ships, and they have the worst OPEX performance in the market. Why it used not to be the case? So again, a realization for me to say that it takes money to change things. So the governments and the authorities, they need to also work on that.
Maybe we can conclude that journey with being open to solutions, right? And being proactive. And thank you for leading me through your journey, how it started and where we now. And I'm sure that it will inspire many and also allow others to see you in a different way rather than a decision maker saying no or a decision maker saying yes, and this is the list that will enable that. So thank you once again. And this is Niels.
Thank you.